Let's go. Q&A number 21. Got a super good response from the last one and some really good follow-up questions. So as always, if this interests you or you have any follow-up questions or standalone questions, fire them away because that's how I come up with these. Here we go. What is the easiest way to know that you are in zone 2 while doing cardio without tracking metrics? What they mean by zone 2 is basically like a position where it's like an output or a perceived difficulty range. And then tracking metrics that they would refer to would be like a heart rate strap or some kind of heart rate monitor. The easiest way to describe zone 2 is it's a lot slower than you think. It's going out and doing some kind of, steady state cardio or continuous movement where you're able to carry on a pretty much unbroken conversation. Maybe every 2 sentences you have to take an extra breath maybe, but anything more than that, you're no longer in zone 2. Zone 2 was pushed aside for a long time and is making a huge comeback because the health benefits, cardiovascularly speaking, are enormous. So not something that I would skip. I think going for a weighted walk, going for a cycle, basically getting in something that is a little aerobic in nature is going to be the key to long-term health and well-being. Thoughts on following a training program versus hopping around from session to session. So, the great question. What this question alludes to is basically, are you hopping from program to program or doing something where it's like random CrossFit or random Orange Theory or something like that? Or are you following a periodized program that is progressive in nature, has elements of progressive overload? Progressive overload essentially means that you're doing something that each week or each session or each month, you're building a component of it and slowly doing a little bit more work, weight, volume, something, which is forcing you to and leading towards adaptations, making you more mobile, stronger, better endurance, something like that. I think if you're trying to become a better athlete and you're training for something specific, you 100% need an element of progressive overload. Let's say I want to improve my back squat. I need to slowly, incrementally increase what I'm doing. Otherwise, I'm just going to adapt and get really good at doing the same weight for the same reps forever, and you're not going to make progress. In terms of the other side, though, hopping around, doing things like random kind of CrossFit classes or Orange Theory or something like that, or boot camp classes, I think the element of fun is super high, whereas, the progressive element can be fun, but it's usually more of an individual thing, less of a group thing. So I think there's a huge component of we're meant to be social beings, get around other people, the environment's contagious, the likelihood to show up and continually do it is there. So I think the benefits are both. Ultimately, if you're somebody that's driven, has an understanding you want to move forward, I would say be on a program that's progressive. If you're somebody that's looking to just overall have adherence, create a better lifestyle, maybe build a community, then absolutely be more inclined to go into that class situation. And then if you find in that class situation you want to improve, fill in the blank, then you can specifically work on that one thing and have a periodized program to get there. Case in point, I work with a lot of people who go to CrossFit and they do kind of the general CrossFit, and then they realize that they have holes or weaknesses that they're a little unsure of and how to improve. And then I'll program specifically, whether it's the mobility side or working on getting pull-up strength or overhead pressing strength or back squats. And then I'll be able to program specifically for them that's in conjunction with what they're doing at CrossFit. Sorry, a little long-winded, but moving on, how to work on improving my handstand push-ups. I can do 4 strict and then they fall off fast. I feel you on this. This is one of those movements that once it starts to go, it does start to go quickly. Biggest thing, piggybacking on what I just said, is you need to have an element of progressive overload. So I might do something where it's set up an EMOM every minute on the minute, 60-second clock, hit 1, okay? And then you'll do, say, 10 minutes of that. So you'll hit 1 rep, rest the remainder of the minute. Then the following minute, you'll hit 1 rep, 1 perfect rep, rest the remainder. And you'll move through 6 to 10 minutes of that. The following week, what you can do, or later that week, you'll repeat that same EMOM, same time, same 1 rep, and then you can either add 1 round, so the whole session has 1 more rep, or you can do maybe 2 reps the first minute and then singles after that. The next time you come, maybe do a double, and then singles after that, keeping the rounds the same. So basically you're slowly, incrementally increasing the volume and the time stays the same. I would basically do that. It might be a little on the boring side, but you know what's not boring? Making fucking progress. I haven't trained in a decade. Going back this week for the first time. Thoughts? Yeah. 1, good on you. Very good on you for getting back. 2, take it slower than you think. And have like the understanding that you're looking, especially if it's been a decade, you're creating a new habit. And I think the ritual and the habit of showing up and getting back into the routine trumps by a mile, you know, how hard you go, what weight you use, things like that. I would way rather you roll in, do kind of the minimal effective dose, which honestly, if you're coming back after a decade, is not much. A roll in, hit a good warm up, focus on moving really well, and then go home. See how your body recovers. The biggest like downfall and flaw that I see often is people will come back after a break, go super hard because they're energetic, they feel good, they're motivated, which is awesome, but then you have to deal with like 4 days of just feeling crushed, which really kills your motivation and your desire to go back. So I would scale it way back and basically go in with the expectation that you're doing like a quarter of what you think you can do. And then the time you go after that, do 50%, do 75%, and then you can take off. Second thing is I would find, you know, either some kind of coach or some kind of mentor or somebody that's going to help, just because a lot's changed in a decade. I'd find someone to help mentor you through the process, to make sure you're moving well, to mitigate any injuries, to help kind of create better warm-ups and things that are going to help prep your body. Again, you're 10 years older, so there's things have changed. And also you can be diligent about that, which again, related to the first point, you're not going to be setting yourself back by creating injuries, things like that. So biggest thing though, good on you. Welcome back. Let's see. Yeah, and on that point, find accountability too. Because again, like creating new habits, super hard to do, and it's a rare human that can do it all on their own. Find somebody or a class time or a coach, somebody to help you kind of show up, essentially. You won't need it forever, but it is immensely helpful. You talk about nose breathing often. In playing with it, I really struggle breathing through my nose while training. Where do I start? I love this. Yeah, we're meant to breathe through our nose, not our mouth. Intensity dictates what hole you breathe through, nose or mouth. But we are way more inclined to be mouth breathers by a product of just the environment we live in, and we want to be breathing through our nose for a whole host of benefits. I'll save that for another time. But the way that I would improve this is start easier than you think. Go for a walk and just breathe through your nose. That sounds overly simple and way too easy until you go do it. And you realize that while you're thinking about it, you'll be breathing through your nose. And then once you stop thinking about it, your mouth is open. So first thing I would do is absolutely go for a walk, do that. If you really can't remember that and you struggle with that, take a sip of water and hold it in your mouth. There's cultures where they will do that. They'll do running races. Take a sip of water, run, and you have to be able to spit out the water at the end. So I would do that. And then from there, progressions would be walk a little faster, stay nose only going up hills, which is going to be exponentially harder. If that feels good and you're building a capacity and a comfort with that, and your body's adapting, which it will, then I would start doing your warm-ups nose only. So you come in, you do your cardio piece, do that nose only. You do your band walks, you do your mobility, all of the warm-up, do that nose only, and then from there you can progress to a place where then you're doing your whole session nose only, except for maybe the parts where you're all out sprinting and the demand is through your mouth so you can blow off that carbon dioxide. If that doesn't make sense, let me know. And also tell me kind of where you're at. Follow up with me. Tell me where you're at on that, because you might be well past that, and then I can give you other thoughts that are a little bit more advanced. Why do I cramp on rails contractions during mobility training? What they mean by rails is we have pails and rails. So let's just say like you're doing a stretch into a doorway, right? So assuming there's a door here, I'm holding it, I'm feeling the stretch through my shoulder and my chest. I push into the door's not gonna move, so I'm pushing into a stable object and I feel the stretch deepen. Awesome, right? That's your PALS, progressive side. I don't expect that to necessarily make sense, but you're pushing into an immovable object, feeling a deep stretch. The rails is I'm at the end of my range of motion, I'm trying to pull off the door without moving my body. And what happens with that is that I'm contracting the opposite side of what's stretching. PALS, I'm feeling the stretch and I'm increasing the stretch. Rails, nothing moves, but I try to take out the stretch by firing the opposite side. So an easy one is if I'm holding my foot doing a quad stretch, pulling my heel to my butt, and then I let go and try to keep my heel at my butt without my hand holding, you will probably feel a hamstring Charlie horse. What that is you're improving your range of motion, and there's a difference between passive, meaning I can haul my foot to my butt, and active being that I let go with my hand, and now I'm trying to use my brain neurologically to pull my heel to my butt. And then, hello, here's a Charlie horse. The reason is that gap between passive and active range of motion, you don't necessarily own all of that. You can only pull your foot so far. So when we train and work mobility, what we're trying to do is make that range so we have more active to our passive. And what it is, it's like neurological confusion. Your nervous system's like, I'm not used to being here, we shouldn't be here, and it basically protects you by Charlie horsing, because it immediately stops you from what you're doing and pulls you out of that. So the reason you're doing your cramping is because it's a neurological confusion. And I would say to the best of your ability, try to fight through that, which I know is like, you know, everything goes blank and you're just like, fuck, this hurts. But I would really try to focus on that because there's enormous benefits from like sitting in that and suffering. Obviously, if you have to come out, I often have to come out completely fine, but I would not shy away from that because that's the piece that's really going to help own that range of motion and mitigate further injury. Tick, 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 tick. And if that made zero sense, let me know and I can work to try to explain that a different way. My grip fails often and is usually a limiting factor during workouts. How can I improve that? Do more grippy things. So I would do farmer's carries. So take 2 heavy weights, hold them by your sides, and walk. And you can play with going shorter duration, so not as far, and real heavy. And then other sessions you can go lighter, but walk for longer. And then the other thing you can do is like passive holds. So jump up to a pull-up bar and just hang. Hang as long as you can. Same deal. Since this is a clear weakness for you, build out a progressive deal. Like try to progress the distance or the weight and keep one of the metrics the same and just slowly, incrementally improve. Do you always warm up? Do I always warm up? Yeah, I do. It's one of those things that it mitigates injury. I deal with some hip stuff that I'm working on. I have little like bony knobs on the top of my femur. So if I don't warm up and don't take time to kind of do that like joint prep work, I'm gonna end up by being in pain and not able to like do normal life activities. So for me, usually what I'll do for warming up is I'll cycle between the rower and the air bike. I'll do 10 calories on each, 8, 6, 4, 2. Takes me like 4 minutes at an easy pace, breathing nose only. And it just gets me moving, kind of wakes my nervous system up, gets me into a more sympathetic state. Then I'll do usually like cars for what I'm gonna be doing. So I'll do like knee car, hip car, spine car if I'm gonna be squatting. And then from there, I'll do like more specific things to warm up the patterns I'm gonna be doing that day. So if I'm squatting, I'm gonna make sure I'm warming up my ankles and their dorsiflexion, their ability to bend. I'm gonna make sure my knees are good, my hips are good, my spine's good. I'm gonna do a little bit of core activation work so I feel like I have the ability to control and brace myself as I get going. So I would definitely not skip the warm-up. If I were to skip anything, I'd skip the finisher piece and make sure I prioritize the warm-up. But that's me. Last question. I don't have time to get in any exercise. Thoughts? You have kind of drawing a hard line in the sand here. You do have time. Everybody has time. And I totally understand, like some people have 4 kids, work 2 jobs, but you can park a little bit further away from the door and walk that extra 30 seconds. That adds up. You can go under one door frame in your house, and every time you go under that door frame, you can do 5 air squats. Like in the total demand of the day, it's gonna take you 4 seconds every time you go under that door. But if you go through that door often, you might get 100 squats in the day. Well, all of a sudden you do that for a week, there's 700 squats. Maybe that's an aggressive start, but you can, for a person who has been fairly fit before, create something like that and do that. You're somebody that, like, if you have kids, because I know for me, like when Welly's around, I don't have time to necessarily always train, but while she's coloring and I'm on the floor, I can be stretching, or I can be, you can hold a plank, you can do a little mobility work. And then my favorite thing to do, this is my own invention, is we have EMOMs every minute on the minute. Do an EHA every hour on the hour. So every single hour, set an alarm, get up from your desk and do something. So, I will, every hour on the hour on a busy day, I will do 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 squats. I'll do 2 rounds real quick. But by the time a 10-hour day is done, that's added up to be some real volume. And it's creating the habit of you finding these little pockets to move. That's one. Second thing is you're gonna inevitably have like social time or do things with your kids or things like that. Instead of having those activities be something where you're a little more sedentary, create them into opportunities where you're moving. So instead of hopping in the car to drive somewhere, put the kids in a bike stroller and bike to where you're going, put the groceries in the bike stroller next with the kid and bike back. You're getting the benefit. They're seeing what a healthy lifestyle looks like. There's numerous benefits there. And at the end of the day, like, take work calls on a walk. Sit in the bottom of a wall sit while you're on social media. I have a friend who, anytime they go on social media, they need to either be in a plank and scroll from a plank or in a wall sit and scroll from a thing. One, their happiness went up because they weren't on social media so much. And two, they turned into an absolute freak when it comes to sitting in wall sits because they would be there scrolling TikTok for minutes before they even realize their quads are on fire. So I think a lot of it is like, stop viewing it as an all or nothing thing. Maybe it's not perfect, but I bet you can do a lot more than you think. So with that, hopefully that's a little motivating to some of you. If you have any follow-up questions, please let me know. Any thoughts, concerns, you're curious about how to progress things, let me know. I'm here to help. I freaking love doing this stuff with you guys. So let me know what you need, and I'm happy to facilitate. Thanks, guys.